Welcome to The Explainer. So today we are tackling a huge question. How do we even begin to govern a borderless internet? I mean, the digital world connects all of us, which is amazing, but it also opens us up to threats that just don't respect physical borders. So how do you create rules for a world that has no walls? Let's get into it. All right, so to really get this, we've got to start with what we can call the central paradox of our digital age. It's this fundamental tension, that sits right at the heart of everything. It's what makes the internet both so powerful and so incredibly vulnerable at the same time. This quote right here from the UK's National Cybersecurity Strategy, it just nails it. The very openness that makes the internet this amazing engine for innovation, for communication, for global commerce, well, that exact same openness is a wide open backdoor for cybercrime, for espionage, for all kinds of disruption. The very connection we all want, it's also the pipeline for the threat. So to really wrap your head around just how big this challenge is, we gotta go way back, like way, way back to 1648 and the Peace of Westphalia. I mean, our entire system of international law is built on this one idea. Sovereign states control what happens inside their physical borders, right? Simple. But cyberspace, it's what the paper calls a post-territorial system. Hacker in one country can cause chaos in another in like seconds. The old rulebook, it's basically useless here. And look, this isn't just some abstract legal debate for academics. No way. This clash between old school laws and these new borderless threats, it has staggering real-world consequences that honestly we see in the news pretty much every day. I mean, just look at the money. The financial cost is absolutely mind-blowing. In the US alone, the average price tag for a single data breach is over $7 million. Think about that. That's lost revenue, huge recovery costs, a reputation that might be trashed forever, all because we haven't figured out how to secure this space that has no borders. And as big as the financial cost is, the human cost is, well, it's even bigger. Just think about the Yahoo breaches from a few years back. A single string of attacks hit 1.5 billion users. That's not just a number. That's personal information, passwords, private details for a massive chunk of the entire planet's online population. Just gone. Snatched up in one fell swoop. And these things are truly global events, right? Take the WannaCry ransomware attack. That thing didn't care about borders. It ripped through over 230,000 computers in 150 countries. It crippled parts of the UK's National Health Service, for crying out loud. It disrupted everything from railways in Germany to shipping companies in the US. If you ever needed proof of the global scale of this problem, that was it. Okay, so with the stakes being this high, it's not like people haven't tried to fix this, right? We have. So let's take a look at some of those early attempts to try and bring some kind of order to all this chaos. So early on, there were basically four main ideas floating around, but spoiler alert, each one pretty much hit a brick wall. First, you had self-regulation, this idea that cyberspace should be its own independent country, basically. That failed because, how do you deal with serious crime or state-sponsored attacks? You need real governments for that. Then there was the idea of a single, giant international treaty. Well, that turned out to be way too slow and rigid for how fast tech moves. People also tried just applying old laws, like treating data like physical property. That didn't work either, because you can copy data 1,000,000 times and it can be everywhere at once. And finally, there was this hybrid idea, Lex Informatica, but it just never got the legal teeth it needed to be effective. The bottom line? They all failed because they were just too simple for a super complex problem. And this is where we get to the core argument of the paper we're looking at today. All those old models, they failed because they were trying to solve a 21st century problem with a 20th century mindset. They were missing some really, really key players. The big idea, the game changer, is something called multi-stakeholder governance. It's a simple but profound concept. You just can't govern the internet with only governments. Why? Because the private sector actually builds and runs the thing, and we, the people, all use it, so everyone needs a seat at the table. It's that simple. And this is what that table looks like. Yeah, of course you need governments and nation states, but you also have to have the tech companies, the ones who actually own the technology. You need civil society groups and NGOs who represent all of us, the users, and you definitely need the academic and technical folks who actually understand the nuts and bolts of how the internet works. Seriously, any solution that tries to leave one of these groups out, it is absolutely doomed to fail from the start. Okay, so that all sounds great in theory, right? Get everyone together! But what does this new model actually look like in practice? Well, the paper gives us a really compelling, real-world example of how this can work.
And this timeline right here, it's basically a potential roadmap. Just look at the EU's long journey to get to GDPR. This did not happen overnight. It started way back in 1995 with a pretty flexible directive, just to get everyone on the same page with the basic goals. Then they spent a whole decade just building a shared culture, building confidence around data protection. It was only after all that groundwork, after years of debate, that they were able to pass something as strong and binding as GDPR. The key takeaway? They built trust first, then they built the law.
And this really gets to the heart of it. The goal here is harmonization, not homogenization. What's the difference? Well, you're not trying to force every country to have the exact same legal system. That's never going to work. Instead, you're trying to get all the different players onto the same sheet of music, recognizing you have shared problems while still respecting your differences. It's about building that foundation of mutual trust and shared principles first. Then, and only then, can you build effective rules on top of it. So that leaves us with the big final question, doesn't it? In a world that is full of geopolitical rivalries and cutthroat corporate competition, is it even possible to build the kind of trust we need to govern this shared digital world of ours? I mean, the answer to that question isn't just going to define cybersecurity. It could very well define the future of international cooperation itself.